What is one of the most scary moments you have ever experienced? I mentioned in one of my previous reflections that my son and I backpacked several journeys together, multi-day journeys, and some of them were quite challenging. Together, we multi-day backpacked several Grand Canyon treks. One of the scariest experiences was when we were at the river bottom and we needed to travel about 6 miles or so to the next destination. As we began our trek along the river bottom, we realized that somehow we had missed the trail, and so we wondered at one point we had lost it. We were with a couple of other backpacking friends, and so we continued for maybe a couple of 100 yards, thinking we might be able to see the trail above us because we did need to climb a certain uh, amount of distance in order to reach our next destination. And we didn't see where the trail was, and so we began to wonder, well, should we backtrack to our previous starting point and start all over, or should we just keep going? Just about that time, we looked up towards, above us, and we saw a couple of backpackers, probably 200 or 300 feet above us, who were going in the same direction we were, and they looked like they were on the trail. And so we figured, well, that must be the trail. So let's go ahead and mosey our way up to the top. We began to inch and climb and slip and slide our way towards the top. There was no trail that we were following. We were just moving up towards the top at about a 60-degree angle, and much of rock and shale and sand and so forth was very loose. And so it seemed like for every couple of steps forward, we were also sliding backward a step, almost the same amount. Inch by inch, we worked our way up, but at any moment, we were beginning to think, wow, man, if we lose our footing here, or if suddenly gravity overtakes us, we're going to uh, slide all the way down, or perhaps even worse. It wasn't a very smart tactic on our part to try to reach the trail. We got up to about maybe 6 feet from the trail to go. The other two backpacking buddies that were with us had reached it before my son and I reached it. And as my son and I were getting closer and closer, all of a sudden, my son started slipping down and losing his control nearly. And I could see that he was beginning to panic. And so I didn't really call out to the Lord, so to speak, for help and rescue, but I was thinking it, no doubt. And just as I was thinking it, this hand reaches down from the younger of the backpacking buddies. It was like an arm from heaven itself, although literally it wasn't. And this arm reached down and grabbed my son's either his shoulder or his backpack or a combination of both. And he pulled him up and he helped my son up to the trail. And then I was not too far behind him and I was able to mosey my way up to the top. We did make it to the trail, but let me tell you, that was scary because uh, we were thinking that not only it was stupid on our part to have done that, we got ourselves into that situation. It would have been much easier just to backtrack and to pick up where we had lost the trail. So it was a hard lesson to learn. But one thing it illustrated to me, and it still sticks in my mind, is that the Lord indeed does care for his children. Now, we can get ourselves into situations that we are responsible for, and we end up bearing the consequences. So I'm not trying to suggest that if you ever get into a situation like that or something worse where you make not the smartest decision and you end up suffering some potential consequences or even worse, that you're necessarily going to get out of them immediately. But in this situation, the Lord had mercy. He reached down, so to speak, from heaven, and he brought my son up, which was the most important to me. Then I was able to make it up to the trail. And it reminds me now of 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your cares upon God, for he cares for you. And so we come to Psalm 55 in our journey, and so much is going on in this psalm, like so many other psalms. So, what I've tried to do here is just point out several themes. Over on the right hand side, you can see some of these themes highlighted. And if you correspond the colors or the circles and outlines and underlines and so forth, or even highlighted words on the right hand side, you'll see how they correspond to the themes as they are portrayed in the psalm, at least the way I understand it. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that these are the only themes. I'm not even suggesting that this is the only way to look at this psalm. The psalms are so filled with emotion, thought, struggle, instruction, prayer, meditation at the same time that a lot of times we can divide up the various ideas in the Psalms in a number of ways to help us understand what is being said and expressed. What I wanted to point out is particularly in the second half of the Psalm here, or rather in the middle, you can see in verses 12 through 14, and then towards the end in verses 18, or rather 20 through 21, how once again King David is speaking, whether or not he realized the voice of King Jesus. For Jesus faced such opposition. Jesus faced indeed one who was with him, who was part of the 12, and who turned his back on him and who betrayed him. And we see this culminated in Mark chapter 14, where just as Jesus was speaking to those who had come to get him, one of the 12, Judas, appeared. And you can see how Jesus, or rather Judas, betrayed Jesus with a kiss. In Psalm 55, if you read through this and reflect on it, you'll see that King David experienced a very serious situation, or a series of situations in which he was scared, in which he thought he was near death itself. And this psalm, like so many others, particularly in the string of several psalms here from about 52 through 59 that we will see, David is facing constant battles and in defense of those who are attacking him or have attacked him. And towards the end of the psalm, David encourages those who are reading, reflecting, listening, watching him. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. I have placed 1 Peter 5:7 over on the right-hand side here. So this psalm anticipates, looks forward, expects, even, I don't want to say predicts, but I do think that it's one more example of how the psalm writers, they had a much more robust understanding of who the Messiah was going to be than often we give them credit for. Even as David was the one appointed, as expressed in Psalm 2, that he was the king out of which the line of the eternal king would come. David is putting himself over and over again into these Psalms in the perspective of that king, realizing that he is going to be facing, he himself, that is David, opposition throughout his life, and that no matter where he is, in the city in which he tries to rule, there's going to be opposition against him. And ultimately, he speaks the voice of King Jesus, the Messiah, who himself faced opposition in the city of Jerusalem and all around him before he went to the cross. Jesus speaks the voice to us, even through the Apostle Peter in 1 Peter 5:7. Let me encourage you, cast all your care, all your anxiety on Jesus Christ the Lord, our Messiah, our King, for he cares for you.